Times Square, it's going to be crazy later. Grew up in New York. As I've said on this show many times, I grew up like 2 miles from Times Square on the Upper West Side of New York. Never have I been to the ball drop in Times Square, and never will I go. Are you crazy? I'm not going to that cesspool of craziness down there. Absolutely not. Welcome back, everybody, to American Sunrise. I'm David Brody. All right, the war of words continues. Iran's president warning the United States that any attack on Iran would be met with a strong and immediate response. Yeah. The statement comes after President Trump said military action could be an option if Iran continues work on its nuclear program. Iran says it's not seeking war, but will defend its sovereignty if threatened. It also comes, by the way, as mass protests are breaking out across Iran after the country's currency fell to a record low. Shop owners in Tehran and other major cities shut down businesses and took to the streets. This is going on as we speak, angry over rising prices and economic collapse. Police using tear gas to break up crowds as unrest spreads. Iran's central bank chief, by the way, has resigned amid growing pressure. They have 50% inflation there in Iran. My goodness. For expert analysis, let's bring in retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General, thanks for being here. So I'm curious to get your assessment of what's happening geopolitically between Iran and the United States, and also clearly what we're seeing on the streets of Tehran and other places in Iran this morning. My goodness. I mean, you wonder when and if this regime could indeed fall. We know we've been hearing this for now almost a couple decades about the young folks in Iran rising up at some point. The economic frustration there clearly overwhelming. I think we have a major developing story this morning.
David, you're right. And I think that frustration is bubbling over. And you look back a year, and the reason the Ayatollah originally came to the negotiating table with President Trump is because he was worried about his regime's survival, because even then the economic conditions were so dismal. And now we see these mass protests. And I think there is a real possibility that the people of Iran are fed up with the Ayatollah and his regime. And maybe now is the time for them to do something about it. And even more specifically, Iran has spent $500 billion on their nuclear program that we destroyed with those B-2 bombers in one night. And that just adds to the frustration of the people of Iran that want to live as a part of the global community that now have been stifled because of decisions by the Ayatollah and the regime that have hindered their ability for a quality of life.
General, Russia is claiming Ukraine launched a large drone attack on one of President Vladimir Putin's residences, saying dozens of drones were shot down. The Kremlin dismissing calls to provide evidence to support the claim. Ukraine and Western officials have denied responsibility. They've called the allegation unfounded. This is all, of course, as tensions remain very high on the ongoing war. General, how concerning is this for the peace talks?
This is fake news, that there is no indication from any credible intelligence source that Ukraine launched the attack that Russia has described, and more specifically, that Putin called President Trump about and lied to his face. And I think all of this is just a pretext that demonstrates that Russia and Putin has no interest in ending this war. They were the ones that started it. They're looking for added pretext to continue striking Ukrainian civilian targets. And I think maybe specifically, President Putin sees that there is momentum gathering for a consolidated Western position at the negotiating table to try to end this war. And he's doing everything he can to scuttle that consolidated momentum that looks to try to put pressure on him to stop what he's been doing for the last 4 years, though he has no inclination to stop.
But wouldn't he know, General, that this would be unprovable and that media outlets would call it out like this? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm wondering, could he, I know Putin's a bad guy and all the things, but could he have gotten bad intel or something?
I think he's doing whatever he can in an act of desperation to try to convince the president of the United States that Ukraine is the one that doesn't want peace, when reality is that it is Putin and Russia. And you're right that all intelligence sources, no doubt, that are being briefed to President Trump are indicative of the fact that this is fake news. But I think it's a sign of desperation by Putin that he's doing whatever he can to try to continue a war that frankly is unwinnable, because he continues to be deluded into believing that his maximalist aims are possible.
Yeah, it does certainly seem to be a sign of desperation. You know, General, China has launched large-scale military drills around Taiwan involving naval ships, warplanes, and missile forces. Beijing says the exercises are a warning against Taiwanese independence and foreign interference. Taiwan condemned the drills as intimidation and says its military is on high alert to defend the island. General, what do you make of this development?
Emily, this is another example of China using bullying tactics to express their dissatisfaction with what's going on in Taiwan. To be clear, though, any one of these exercises could be a cover for a real attack, and so we've got to be vigilant about what could happen. But right now, China is dissatisfied that the United States provided $11 billion recently in a security assistance arms deal. They're dissatisfied that Taiwan is ramping up to 5% of GDP they're spending on defense, and they're expressing dissatisfaction about some strong words recently from the Prime Minister of Japan against China in the South China Sea. But all of these are examples of these bullying tactics that could be a cover for a real attack, but likely are just trying to strong-arm Taiwan into yielding to China's will.
General, let me follow up and go back to Putin for a second, specifically Putin and Trump. Help me through this. I mean, Trump's the art of the deal guy. He's really smart when it comes to reading people. And yet on Putin, he says all of these positive things about Putin. So is this just a public facade by Trump on purpose with an art of the deal in mind here? In other words, do we really think that Trump believes that Putin's this guy that's not this horrible individual? Or is he trying to butter up Putin in public to kind of get to a peace deal? What's going on exactly? Or does he really believe that Putin is an honest broker here? Because if that's the case, that's a problem.
David, I don't believe that the president believes that Putin is an honest broker. And you know that based on the interview recently by Susie Wiles in Vanity Fair that acknowledges that Trump sees right through what Putin is doing. And I think all of this is a negotiating tactic to preserve negotiating maneuver room to try to find a way to get to a deal, even though, again, Putin is lying to the president and is inclined to never take a deal because he does believe that he can achieve his aims in Ukraine.
Yeah,
let me ask you this.
Actually,
go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Gina. No, Gina, go ahead.
So we still have never had any accountability from Zelensky. Putin might be a bad guy, but I'll tell you what, that little smarmy Zelensky really makes me nervous too. We've never had any accountability for all of the billions of dollars that we've poured into that whole situation. We were told pretty early on that we were going to have some accountability from him. Do you foresee that ever, or are we just going to forget this and close the book and pretend like Zelensky is a, fair player?
Well, Gina, I think it's important to realize that now President Trump is not spending a single dime on Ukraine, that this is European investment into the defense of Ukraine. And frankly, it's helping our economy by buying American for a lot of those defense systems. But I do think, especially as this war eventually comes to a close, that there needs to be a detailed accounting of how our U.S. taxpayer dollars have been spent. And then we can hold the right players accountable. But I think the right first step is to stop American spending on Ukraine, let Europe spend on Ukraine, buy American, and then hold him accountable or whoever accountable down the road after this war is done.
Absolutely. Retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert, thanks for being here and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, y'all.
Happy New Year.
All right, y'all. I like it. Coming up, New Year's Eve parties. We all know some people who will indulge with, a drink or two tonight. How can they avoid a holiday hangover? Those tips next on American Sunrise.
Thank you, Patriots. Because of you, Anthem of the Free by the J6 Prison Choir and Real America's Music hit #1 on iTunes. To say thank you, we're giving one Patriot the chance to win an incredible War Room, Rebels, Rogues, and Outlaws poster, signed by the one and only Steve Bannon. How to enter? Text J6PC to 75802 to opt in. Download Anthem of the Free on iTunes. Be ready to show proof of purchase. Already downloaded? You're in. Haven't yet? Now's your chance to join the mission and and still be eligible to win. All net proceeds from this song go to the Stand in the Gap Foundation, proudly supporting J6 prisoners facing mental and physical trauma and financial crisis caused by this political attack. Yes, we hit number 1, but we can't stop there. Keep the pressure on. Keep downloading. Let's turn the woke music and entertainment industry upside down.
A song not only for January 6th, but for all Americans.
This is bigger than a song. It's a movement.